There was still glitter on the floor. Some of it had stuck to the bottom of my shoe when I stepped on the welcome mat, the same one she had custom ordered last month with the future Bennetts printed on it in cursive gold. It mocked me now. Her perfume was in the air before she even opened the door. That same vanilla champagne scent she wore on special nights. Except this time, I wasn't the reason she wore it. I had timed everything down to the minute. Her flight landed at 3:08. I gave her enough time to get her bag, flirt with whoever walked her to the Uber, and fake a hangover on the ride home. So by 3:54 p.m., I was already sitting at the edge of the couch. Lights off. Envelope on the coffee table. Suitcase by the door. Ring inside a glass. Next to a bottle of untouched champagne. She came in humming. Shoes in one hand. Phone in the other. Her mouth open like she was about to ask if I missed her. Then she saw it. I swear, I saw the muscles in her face freeze mid-smile. She didn't even drop her shoes. Just stopped breathing for a second. The way a deer does when it hears the snap of a twig. "You're early," she said. I didn't answer. I didn't even move. I wanted her to fill the silence. Drown in it, honestly. Her eyes flicked to the envelope. The white one. The thick one. The one that held 4 printed screenshots. Not 1,000. Not even 10. Just 4. That's all it took. One from the hotel elevator camera. One from the mirror selfie with the flash showing way too much. One of the text thread between her and Ricky woozy face sweat droplets. And one from the rooftop, where her hands definitely weren't where they were supposed to be. I didn't shout. I didn't even blink when she started saying my name. She said it like a prayer at first, then like a question, then like a curse. "Let me explain," she said. I pointed at the suitcase. Not the one she dragged in. The one I packed for her. Just 2 pairs of shoes. Some basics. And her passport. The bare minimum. "You can keep the rest," I finally said. My voice cracked somewhere in the middle. "Everything here already has your fingerprints on it anyway." Her mouth opened again, but no sound came out. And that was the first time in 7 years she looked like the stranger I always feared she might be. She didn't touch it at first, just stared at the envelope like it might bite her. I watched her, silently, from the couch. She'd walked into this house laughing like it was still hers. Now she couldn't take one more step. Her hand trembled as she reached for it. Slow, like her body didn't fully want to know what her mind already did. The flap of the envelope lifted, and the papers slid out in a neat little fan across the coffee table. 1, 2, 3, 4 photos. She grabbed them clumsily, one hand still holding her phone, still lit up with a notification from someone named Ricky. She didn't look at me. Not once. She looked at the photos, and then her mouth opened like she might say something. But it never came. Just air. Just panic. Her knees buckled. Not enough to fall, just enough that she had to sit. So she dropped onto the armchair across from me like a marionette with half its strings cut. The silence between us stretched like rubber about to snap. I kept thinking she'd lie. She'd fake cry. She'd blame the alcohol, the friends, the pressure. I was ready for all of it. I'd played out every version in my head the night before. But she didn't. Instead, she laughed. It was quiet, ugly, dry, the kind of laugh someone gives when they know they're caught, but haven't figured out which version of the truth will hurt the least. "That rooftop pic is old," she muttered. I blinked. She really opened with that? Not "I'm sorry." Not "let me explain." Not "I love you." She went straight for denial, not even of what happened, but of when it happened. As if the date on the screenshot wasn't right there in the corner. Time stamped. Location tagged. Rooftops from Friday. Texts are from Saturday. Elevator was last night, I said calmly. Too calmly. Like I'd rehearsed it. Because I had. "I didn't even sleep with him," she blurted out. There it was. The classic defense. As if that was supposed to erase everything. Like betrayal is only real once someone takes their clothes off. Like the lies, the sneaking, the emotional cheating. The way she let another man touch her while calling me her future somehow didn't count. "Cool," I whispered. "So you just let him touch you, kiss you, text you that he misses your taste. That's somehow better?" That's when the tears came. She reached for my hand. I flinched so hard I almost knocked the ring glass over. Her hand stopped in midair. Then came the shaking voice. The panic. The desperate rationalizing. "We were drunk. I didn't mean anything. It was just stupid fun. I didn't want to hurt you. I swear to God, Curtis." I stood up. Fast. "Don't say my name right now," I said, louder than I meant to. My voice cracked. and my throat burned like I'd been screaming all night, even though I hadn't said a word to anyone but myself. I didn't plan any of this. It just happened. She yelled, standing now too. You packed lingerie? I snapped. That doesn't just happen. You shaved. You brought perfume you only use when you're trying to impress someone. You posted fake photos of an Airbnb you weren't even in. You planned the whole thing better than our damn wedding. She stood there, frozen, finally understanding I wasn't bluffing, that I wasn't going to break down and beg her to stay, that the ring was staying in the glass, that the suitcase by the door was already packed, not waiting for her to unpack hers. What do you want me to do? She whispered, almost to herself. Please, just tell me what to do. I didn't answer, because if she didn't know by now, she never would. I didn't speak. I just stood there, staring through her like she was the final page of a book I already regretted reading. Her voice was breaking, trying to fill the silence with anything she thought might glue the pieces back together. But every word she said just made it worse. She started pacing, hands on her head like she was the one who'd been betrayed, like I had blindsided her. I messed up, okay? But does that mean everything we've built just disappears? I finally looked at her, and I said it quietly. Maybe you should have thought about everything we've built before you crawled into his lap. Her face crumpled, like I'd slapped her. For a split second, I felt that old urge, the one to comfort her, to protect her even when she was the one doing the damage. But then I remembered the way she smiled in that rooftop photo. Not tipsy, not blurry, just glowing, like she was exactly where she wanted to be. She walked to the coffee table, picked up the ring glass, and stared at it like she'd forgotten what it was supposed to mean. You don't want to talk about this? Fix this. Fight for me at all. I did fight, I said. I fought every night you came home late saying you were working late at Lacey's. I fought every time you locked your phone, every time you flinched when it buzzed. I fought when I saw you drift further away but still looked me in the eyes and said you loved me. Then, for the first time since she walked in, she looked scared. I didn't think you'd actually find out, she whispered. And there it was. The most honest thing she'd said all day. Not sorry, not ashamed, just caught. She reached for the ring, and I stepped in front of her. No, I said flat. You don't get to wear that anymore. She paused, looked at me like I was a stranger. Like suddenly, I wasn't the doormat she'd grown so comfortable walking over. But I didn't flinch. I couldn't, because if I gave her even an inch, she'd find her way back into my life like smoke under a door. Then what? She snapped. You just throw me out like garbage? I didn't throw you out, I said, pointing at the suitcase by the door. You packed that bag the moment you chose him over me. I walked to the kitchen drawer, pulled out a photo envelope, one I hadn't planned to show her until after she left. But something in me wanted her to see it, to feel it. I dropped the photos onto the table, glossy, fresh, beautiful. Who's this? She asked, picking one up like she already knew she shouldn't. It was a photo from the engagement shoot I had redone that morning, with someone else. Someone who'd been in my life longer than Natalie ever knew. Someone who never flirted behind my back, never made me question my worth. Someone who was supposed to be just a friend, until Natalie reminded me what betrayal looks like, and I realized what real loyalty actually is. You don't know her, I said, walking away toward the hallway. But she knows all about you. Natalie stared at the photos in silence. And for once, I didn't care what she was thinking. She gripped the photos like they were burning her hands. I could almost hear her heartbeat from across the room. I didn't expect her to recognize the woman in the pictures, and she didn't. But that didn't stop her from trying to act like she did. Who even is she? Natalie asked again, her voice higher, thinner. Some rebound you pulled out of nowhere just to punish me? I didn't look at her when I answered. She was already there. I just stopped ignoring her. The silence that followed was different now. Less about guilt, more about fear. She wasn't used to me being calm. Natalie always relied on the fact that I'd lose control, cry, yell, beg, and when I didn't, it was like the floor shifted beneath her. She looked smaller now, like the room itself wasn't designed to hold her anymore. Her voice came again, this time slower. Curtis, are you serious right now? You're replacing me? Over one stupid weekend? I turned and faced her finally. No, you replaced yourself the second you let him unzip your dress and still kept the ring on. Her jaw tightened, and her hands went white around the edges of the photos. You don't even know what happened. You're right, I said. I don't know every detail. I didn't sit outside the hotel room with a tape recorder, but I saw enough. And you lied about enough. And honestly, if that is what you did in front of a camera, I can only imagine what you did when the lights were off. That landed hard. She sat down again, slowly, like her legs gave out. She was still wearing that little gold ankle bracelet I bought her last year. It caught the light as she shifted. I remember how proud she was of it. Said it made her feel kept. Ironic now. I'll do whatever it takes, she whispered. Therapy. Counseling. Block him. I'll change my number. I'll delete social media. I'll call your mom. Just, please. Curtis, don't do this. I felt a strange, quiet ache twist in my chest when she said my name like that, soft and broken. The version of her I used to love lived in that voice. But I also knew now that voice was a tool. She used it every time she needed to clean up one of her messes. I didn't speak. I just walked over to the hallway closet, opened the top shelf, and pulled down the framed canvas that had our wedding vows printed on it. She had them custom-made 6 weeks ago. She said she wanted our promises visible in the home, not just spoken once at the altar. I placed the canvas down on the kitchen island, and then I took the little lighter I'd kept in the drawer, the one she used for candles and ambience, and I flicked it on. Curtis, don't. The flame kissed the corner of the frame. The vows curled at the edges, blackened, then caught fully. And I watched. Not because I'm dramatic. Not because I wanted to scare her. But because I needed to see it end. I never cheated on you, she whispered desperately. Not fully. I stopped before it got that far. I turned to her, finally, and said the quietest, most cutting thing I could think of. That's what you said about your ex when we first met. That's how you justified what you did to him. And now here we are. Same words. Different man. Her whole face changed. Like a mirror cracking from the inside. Like she'd finally seen herself. And hated what she saw. Smoke from the burning canvas curled toward the ceiling like it was trying to escape the room before things got worse. The printed vows turned to black flakes and soft gray ash. Natalie didn't move. She just watched it all fall apart. Not just the vows, but the illusion she'd built. The one where I'd always be the guy who stayed. Who forgave. Who waited for her to cry hard enough to win. This time, I didn't reach for her. I didn't speak to soften it. I just let it burn. I know what this is, she finally said, her voice hoarse. You're doing this to make me feel small. You want me to suffer. No, I said. You already made yourself small. I'm just done pretending it's my job to lift you up. She stood slowly, shoulders stiff, the way she does when she's about to say something cruel. Natalie doesn't go down without claws. So what? You're going to run off with that girl from the photo? Think that's going to make this easier? You think she's better than me? I didn't answer. I walked to the dining table and picked up my phone, the one I hadn't touched since she came in. I unlocked it, pulled up the most recent outgoing call, and turned the screen toward her. She squinted, confused. Then her face went pale. It wasn't the girl in the photo. It wasn't my mother. It wasn't some therapist hotline. It was Donovan, her boss. You called my job? She gasped, her voice cracking. What the hell did you say to him? Just the truth, I said plainly. Told him how one of his senior marketing managers used the company's annual wellness stipend to book a hotel suite for a private party in another city. How she skipped 2 mandatory check-in calls while out of state, falsified her itinerary, and listed it as a professional development retreat. Her hands flew to her mouth. Curtis, are you insane? You could ruin my career. You mean the career you were too busy protecting to answer my calls the night you were dancing on your ex's shoulders? I said, not shouting, but not calm either. Don't worry. I didn't send him the pictures. Yet. Why would you do that? She whispered, eyes glossing. You think ruining my life is going to fix yours? I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure yet if I even felt anything anymore. She stepped toward me, desperate. You always said I was better than what I came from. You used to believe in me. And then you made me wish I didn't, I said. She sat down again, this time slower, weaker. She knew I wasn't bluffing. She knew the fallout was real, and she still didn't know the half of it. Curtis, please. You don't understand. I was confused. I felt like I was disappearing in this wedding, like I was becoming someone else. I panicked. It wasn't supposed to go that far. Funny, I said, walking toward the door. That's almost word for word what you said to your ex, when you left him for me. She froze. Again. And that was the moment, that exact second, that her whole mass cracked. Her shoulders slumped. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Because for the first time in her life, she wasn't just being left. She was being seen. for exactly who she'd always been. And this time, no one was sticking around to help her pretend otherwise. She stared at the floor like maybe if she stayed quiet long enough, it would all disappear. That's what she always did. Avoided, delayed, waited me out. But this time, there wasn't anything left to wait for. She looked like someone who finally realized the house was already on fire, and she was the one who dropped the match. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She didn't move, so I leaned over and tapped the screen, knowing exactly what it was. Email from Donovan, I said casually. Subject line, meeting request. Her eyes darted to the phone, and for a second, I saw it. Real fear. Not the kind she used to manipulate me, not the performative kind. The real kind. The kind that settles in your bones when you finally understand you're not in control anymore. She grabbed the phone and opened the email. Her lips moved slightly as she read. Her fingers tightened around the device. What did you say to him? She asked again, barely able to get the words out. Did you send him the photos? Not yet, I said. I figured he might want to hear your version of the weekend first. I'm nothing if not fair. She laughed, or tried to. It came out more like a cough. You're proud of this? You're proud of blowing up my entire life over a mistake? I tilted my head. You think this is about pride? She walked to the fridge, pulled out a bottle of water, and twisted the cap with shaking hands. I watched her drink like she needed it just to stay upright. Then, without turning around, she said something I honestly didn't expect. I didn't even like him that much. I blinked. She kept talking, her voice low, bitter. Ricky, or Logan, or whoever else you think was the center of all this. It wasn't about him. It was about not feeling anything. I felt like I was disappearing into you, into the wedding, into this image of what I was supposed to be. That weekend, it was me screaming for oxygen. I stood there, stunned, unsure if I was supposed to feel sympathy or just revulsion. Then you should have just said that, I finally replied. Instead of lying, sneaking around, humiliating me in a group chat full of your friends. She turned to face me, and her eyes were bloodshot now. I didn't want to lose you. But you didn't want to keep me either, I said, walking toward the hallway. You just wanted me around long enough to cushion your fall. I went to the bedroom, grabbed the second envelope, the one she didn't know existed, and tossed it on the couch next to her. What's this? She asked, not touching it. Letter of termination from the wedding planner. She already canceled the venue, the florist, the band, everything. And before you ask, yes, I paid the cancellation fees. You're off the hook. She slowly sank down into the couch, blinking hard like she couldn't process the speed of how fast things were crumbling. Just 2 days ago, she was wearing a sash that said Future Mrs. Hartley, while sipping champagne and grinding against a guy she once told me was barely a fling. Now she was surrounded by ashes and suitcases. Curtis, she said, softer now. Can we just talk? Please. Without all this punishment. Just talk to each other. I looked at her for a long time. Then I sat down. And when I spoke, I didn't raise my voice. I begged you to talk to me. For months. When you started pulling away. When you stayed out late. When you flinched every time I said forever. I asked if you were okay. I asked if you still wanted this. You had your chance to talk. But you talked to him instead. So now, no, we don't talk. She didn't cry this time. She just folded in on herself. Like something had finally gone too deep to fix. She sat there for almost 15 minutes without moving, her eyes bouncing between the unopened envelope on the couch and the fading smoke line above the kitchen island. She looked like a woman floating in the wreckage of her own life, not sure what to grab first, or if it was even worth swimming anymore. I stayed quiet. I didn't want to talk anymore. Not because I was over it, but because every word felt like it gave her another excuse, another opening to twist things back into her favor. I knew how she operated. I'd loved her long enough to know exactly how many versions of herself she kept hidden for different occasions. That's when the doorbell rang. She flinched hard, looked at me like I was supposed to know who it was. I didn't move. I was done playing her handler. If someone was at the door for her, she could deal with it. After a few seconds of silence, the bell rang again, longer this time. Whoever it was wasn't going away. Natalie hesitated, wiped under her eyes quickly, then went to the door and opened it halfway, and immediately froze. I couldn't see who it was, not from where I was sitting, but I heard the voice. Clear as day. Natalie. It was her sister, Beth. Of all people. Beth, who practically worshipped her. Beth, who once pulled me aside after our engagement and said, "I've never seen her this grounded. You bring her peace." Beth, who didn't know, not yet, that her perfect big sister had just detonated her own wedding over some rooftop makeout with a guy named Ricky and a weekend of lies. "Beth, hey," Natalie stammered. "I didn't know you were coming over." Beth stepped inside. She saw the half-packed suitcase first. Then her eyes moved to the couch, the burned canvas, the open envelope. Her gaze landed on me last. She didn't even need to ask. Her entire face changed. She looked at Natalie like she had just walked into a crime scene and realized who held the weapon. "What did you do?" Beth asked, her voice quiet. Then sharper. "What did you do, Natalie?" Natalie closed the door behind her and tried to steady her tone. "It's not what it looks like, okay? Curtis is upset, obviously, but it's more complicated than." "You said it was a chill girls trip," Beth cut in. "You sent me pictures of a wine tasting and matching robes. What the hell actually happened?" Natalie opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Her own sister was cornering her now, not even giving her space to breathe, let alone lie. For once, she had no script. Beth looked at me next, and for the first time in days, I felt something real in my chest, something like validation. Not revenge, not triumph, just someone else finally seeing it. "I'm so sorry," Beth said to me, her voice shaking. "I had no idea. If I'd known what she was planning." Natalie snapped. "I wasn't planning anything." Beth turned on her so fast I saw Natalie physically step back. "You've been lying for weeks," Beth shouted. "I saw the signs, the late nights, the excuses, and I wanted to believe you because you're my sister. But now I walk in and your fiancé's burning your wedding vows, and you're crying over what? Getting caught?" Natalie looked like she might collapse. I stood up then, not to defend her, not to argue, just to leave the room. I didn't want to watch her squirm anymore, not in front of her own blood. But as I walked past, I heard Beth say one more thing, and it hit harder than anything I'd said. "You used to tell me you wanted to be nothing like Mom," she said. "But you lied to the man who loved you most." Just like she did. Natalie didn't respond. She couldn't, because there was nothing left to say. After Beth left, Natalie just sat there, not speaking, not crying, just quiet. She had always been the loudest person in the room, full of opinions, always telling stories with her hands, her eyes, her whole body. But now, she looked like someone had unplugged her, like the battery had finally died on all that charm, all that fake energy. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. She packed the rest of her things without me asking. I didn't rush her. I didn't help, either. She moved like a ghost, brushing past the home she once decorated like a Pinterest board for newlyweds. It all meant nothing now. The ring was still sitting in that glass, untouched. The air smelled like smoke and lavender and something else I couldn't name. Regret, maybe. When she wheeled the suitcase to the door, she stopped, turned toward me one last time. "I ruined everything," she said quietly. "I know that. I don't even know who I am anymore." I didn't answer. What was I supposed to say? Good luck out there? She already knew the damage was permanent. Then she said something softer, not manipulative, not performative this time. Just small. "I hope someone loves you better than I did." I looked at her for a moment, and for the first time in all of it, I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel anger. I just felt done. Finally. "You don't need to hope," I said. "She already does." Natalie blinked. Her mouth opened, but no words came. I didn't know her an explanation. I let her stand there in that confusion, in that silence. She left without another word. The door clicked shut behind her like punctuation. Full stop. End of chapter. And here's the part she never expected. I didn't jump into someone's arms. There was no rebound affair, no dramatic kiss in the rain. That's not real life. What was real was the quiet, the peace, the slow return of my own voice in my head instead of hers. It took time, but eventually, the woman from those photos, the one she thought was just a prop, a threat, she called me. I hadn't expected her to. I didn't ask, but she reached out. She said she saw the photos, and she cried, not because I looked good in them, but because she said I looked like myself again, like someone she hadn't seen in years. Her name's Elise. We met way before Natalie. She was the one I'd always told myself was too good for me. Back then, I thought Natalie was what I deserved, someone exciting, unpredictable, wild. But Elise? She was consistent, thoughtful, honest. I thought that meant boring. Turns out, it meant safe. She invited me to coffee. No pressure. Just conversation. And we talked for hours. Like no time had passed. Like all the pieces I thought were shattered had just been scattered, waiting to be put back by the right person. She didn't ask about Natalie. She didn't need to. She just listened to me. All of me. Even the whining. The hurt. The pieces I didn't want to admit were still bleeding. And somewhere in that cafe, between the second and third cup, I realized something so stupidly simple. I wasn't broken. I was just free. Now, it's been 6 months. The apartment looks different. Brighter. Calmer. My nights are quiet. Not because I'm alone, but because no one is yelling or lying or hiding texts in the bathroom. Elise comes over on Sundays. She brings muffins and wears big sweaters and reads the news out loud like an old movie character. Sometimes I catch myself smiling for no reason. Just smiling. And I think that's how I know I made it out. Natalie hasn't called. I don't think she will. Last I heard, she left her job and moved cities. Beth still texts me sometimes. Says she's trying to be better. But me? I already am. And I didn't need revenge. I just needed peace.